The following Patriot Profile is presented without commercial interruption by Smith & Wesson.
Within days of America's attack on 9/11, citizens were galvanized, focused, and united in their support of military action and those willing to take the fight to our enemies. Yet as time and distance separated Americans from the horrific events of that dark day in September, so also have their attention spans narrowed.
Now, when guys get killed in action, you don't hear anything. It's just like a wisp.
On battlefields in Iraq and Afghanistan, in places like Fallujah and Wardak, Tora Bora and Tikrit, American warriors shed their blood and gave their lives for causes and gains that we have completely walked away from. ISIS has emerged a ruthless and more dangerous foe. Unrest in Egypt, Syria, and Yemen has expanded evil's reach. It appears the world is burning out of control, and no one seems to have a plan for extinguishing it.
I was proud that he wanted to join the Army.
I wanted him to accomplish what he wanted to accomplish.
Our job was to support him in the decision.
We said we'd never forget, yet many of the parents who lost their children to war must now wonder if the sacrifice was worth it.
I will never let anybody say that Brennan's death was for naught now.
He gave his tomorrow so we can have our tomorrow.
I didn't want to be a Gold Star mom. I certainly didn't feel like a Gold Star mom.
Ecclesiastes reminds us that there is a time to live and rejoice, a time for mourning and death, that everything under the sun in the creation of God is subject to change. But when a blue star turns to gold, one can only weep for the colors of the fall. Someone once said that God can't be everywhere, so he decided to create mothers. From boogers to band-aids, bruises to breaks, braces to broken hearts, mothers have a connection like no other.
We were told at first that DJ was going to be a girl, and so we were getting all the nursery room and everything set up for a girl, and then lo and behold, we went into the delivery room and it was a boy.
We had problems, but when he came into the world, he was normal. He was a beautiful baby, beautiful baby.
When I was pregnant with Matthew, the first 3 months I had a headache all the time. Not that that's what Matthew turned into being, but I had a headache for the first 3 months.
He was a really fun little kid. He was vivacious. He was always on the move. If he was awake, he was doing something.
The first week, if I stayed up till 11, he would sleep till 4 a.m. What kind of child is that? He was really easy baby.
It is from our mothers we learn the lessons and examples of selflessness and sacrifice. Endless days of unending responsibilities that never dissipate or disappear. They only change.
I knew he was going to be somebody different, but I didn't have a pinpoint on what that was going to be.
Early on, it was clear that Danny Dietz wanted to be an action hero of some sort, whether it was a cowboy, a ninja, or a fleet-footed warrior.
He had to perfect everything he got into.
Cindy and her husband Dan were both martial arts experts.
He would really surprise us at the moves he was doing at such a young age. Nobody wanted to spar with him. The bigger kids didn't want to get beat down by a little 4 or 5-year-old.
Linda Davis is the mother of Jefferson Donald Davis. Donnie, as his parents called him, was a kid who grew up country, hailing from a small town of Watauga, Tennessee, with a population of less than 500.
We lived out on the farm, plenty of places to run and play and just enjoy life as a child.
Even as a young man, his mother and others saw something special about the way that Donnie treated others and the way he always defended the weak or defenseless.
He's always had such a big heart. This one boy at school was picking on his little friends, which was small in stature. Donnie grabbed him and he said, "Why don't you pick on someone your own size?" And the next thing I know, I'm getting this phone call and the principal tells me my child is a bully. And he was afraid he would get punished at home. And I said, "You stood up for your friend?" And I said, "No, I'm not gonna punish you.
Donna Axelson is the mother of Matthew Axelson, born June 25, 1976, in Cupertino, California.
As with most California boys, Matthew spent most of his life outside, very athletic.
Their grandparents lived near a ski resort, so at an early age, Matt and his brother learned to ski.
I mean, when he swished down the mountain, he just looked like he was born to swish down the mountain.
Matt's parents knew what they wanted for their children and what kind of standards they had for their family. The good book was the golden rule they wanted their children to live by.
They never complained. They knew that we always went to church on Sunday mornings. So they knew, honor your father and mother.
Janice Brown could write a book about raising a strong-willed son. Her son Adam was born just a few minutes behind his twin sister Amanda, but that was about the last thing he'd ever be beat at again. About as soon as Adam was old enough to go outside, his mother Janice was mortified when she saw him climb to the top rail of the deck and launch himself 15 feet into the yard below.
I literally spanked him to keep him from hurting himself. And the next time his cousin was over, he took him outside to show him how he could jump off that deck.
If he set his mind to something, nothing could deter him.
I can remember when he was very small, and he would come in and tell me, I think I'm going to win the Best Defensive Player Award for my football team. And I'm like, now, Adam, I don't want you to be disappointed, and I would try to, so he wouldn't be hurt. And then he would come in with that award. And after a while, when Adam would come in and tell me something, I was like, well, we'll see,
Linda Gibson always felt a special bond and connection with her son Brennan. At the time of his conception, she was in a troubled marriage and couldn't picture living with a guy, or raising this child on her own, or bringing a child into a mess that was her life.
My first husband and I, we were having a lot of problems when I was pregnant. And I had told him at 8 months that if you don't get your act together, I'm going to do this by myself. But prior to that, I had considered having an abortion. I wasn't saved at the time. Of course, I didn't, because I just couldn't do that. But that put, for me, even a more tender bond with Brennan, because as I look back, I thought, God, what if I had done that? Look what I would have missed.
Brennan was a good student, but that doesn't mean he liked it much.
He was one of those kids that didn't have to study and was like 4.0 all during high school.
We found out our son was very, very intelligent. He tested 2 points above genius level. We're trying to tell him and guide him, and he knows more than us.
A gifted student with an above-average IQ, Danny Deet shrugged off the gifted and talented program he was placed in.
I'd take him to school. He'd go in the front door and out the back door. They were going to reprimand Dan and I for not keeping our son in school.
When his parents finally signed him over to a tough love military boot camp type program, they felt like they had exhausted all their options.
We did it because we just saw the road he was heading down. He loved the boot camp. He excelled. He was one of the top students in the boot camp. And after that, he came home a changed teenager.
Matthew's nature was, he was an observer, was more quiet.
Some mistook him as shy, but he wasn't shy at all. Matt was just one of those guys who wasn't into the ruckus and the hell-raising of youth.
In middle school and high school, if somebody would start talking about someone else in the youth group, Matthew would always say, I don't think we should be talking about that person right now. And the kids respected him enough where they listened to what he said and they changed the subject.
Golly, that's great.
You better get some clothes on.
It's pretty, isn't it?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Adam's propensity for honesty always blessed his mother. Adam once bugged her in high school to go to the lake with buddies, but Janice was worried because he wasn't the best swimmer.
So finally I said, Adam, if you will promise me you will keep your life jacket on, I'll let you go. And he said, I promise, Mom, I'll do it. I was nervous that he was not going to keep it on, but come to find out, he left that jacket on the entire day, had a little ribbing thrown his way, but I was proud of that boy.
Brennan Gibson was a natural artist. He had a gift.
He had been drawing since he was old enough to draw. He was drawing, so I knew that he was going to go into graphic design, maybe do, freelance art on the side. So when he called me at work and said, Mom, can I have my birth certificate? I'm going to go in the service. I was so shocked that I said no. He hung up on me because he was obviously frustrated.
Linda eventually called him back. She wanted him to understand that there was a war going on, and that joining the Army could get him killed.
He said, I know, Mom, but I know this is what I want to do.
Since the birth of a nation, America has sent her sons and daughters off to war. No greater honor can be followed by any greater sorrow than that of a parent who has offered up their child in such a noble gesture and sacrifice.
I never thought he would be the child that would jump out of airplanes.
After he graduated from college, he'd spent a year working and just wasn't satisfied. And he called and said, you know, I want to give back before I get on with my life, so I'm going to join the Navy and be a SEAL.
Matt's desire to join the Navy and become a SEAL kind of came out of left field for his parents.
He was already dating Cindy, who he eventually would marry. So my first response was, well, that's a 5-year commitment. That's a long time. And his response to me was, well, I'm not going to die when I'm 30.
DJ was born to be a Navy SEAL.
When Danny finally told his parents of his desire to become a SEAL, each parent took the news in a different way.
I didn't come from a huge military background, so I was just a proud mom. Dad, on the other hand, knew what a Navy SEAL was and how difficult it was going to be for him to become one. And I remember Dan telling him, you'll never be a Navy SEAL with the type of attitude you have. And I remember DJ telling his dad, I will become a Navy SEAL.
Really didn't worry as much about him not making it as I worried that he would be so disappointed if he didn't.
Like Donna Axelson and Cindy Dietz Marsh, Janice Brown's son Adam was also a Navy SEAL.
I wasn't fearful. I knew he'd always wanted to be in the military, and if I was always fearful, then I was going to hold him back from doing what he wanted to do.
He just came in one day and said, Mom, how would you feel if I wanted to join the Army?
Donnie's decision to join the military kind of came as a surprise to his mother. He had gotten a small scholarship to college and then eventually transferred to ATSU in Jackson City.
I told him, I said, you're at the age now that we can't live your life for you, and you have to pick what you want to do. That's your decision. And yes, I feel guilty about it sometimes.
Being the parent of a child serving in uniform is a lot like being a passenger on a motorcycle. You are along for the ride no matter how exhilarating or terrifying, but with no control.
All I could do is say, you know, God, he's in your hands.
Brennan's wife Karina became pregnant, and her due date fell right about the time that Brennan received orders to Iraq. His son Caden was born 3 days before he deployed.
He tried to spend as much time at the hospital as he could, holding him and changing him and doing all the daddy things that he wasn't going to get to do for a few months.
When we had connection with him, we felt pretty good, but it was those times when we didn't know where he was and no one had heard from him, and it's a scary thing.
Many, many times when he would leave the country and go on these missions, I would just hope and pray that he was okay.
Davis and others on his team were the first Green Beret Special Forces soldiers dropped into southern Afghanistan. They were sent to foment a rebellion and lead a little-known expatriate named Hamid Karzai.
We thought he was going to go to Iraq. And when he got over there and we heard from him and he was in Afghanistan, I thought, oh good, it's safer in Afghanistan. Because in those days, every night Iraq was in the news, and Afghanistan wasn't.
When Matt started deploying, Donna did her best to avoid the news. The political commentary, dissenting voices of those that didn't like the war, and even the positive news coming through her television set each night was troubling.
By not listening to the news, I probably saved myself a little bit of stress and aggravation. That summer when he was deployed, I'd gone out to water some strawberries and stuff in our front yard. And these 2 uniformed Navy guys came walking up the pathway. Never crossed my mind that they were coming to tell me anything about Matthew. And they said, we're here to tell you that they've lost communication with his team. They're on a mission, but they've lost communication. And I said, okay, I can do lost communication because there's hope there.
As a part of a four-man SEAL team, Matt Axelson and Danny Dietz were dropped into the heart of enemy territory to observe a village housing a high-value target. The mission became compromised when a goat herder accidentally walked into their hiding spot, discovering them. A book and movie titled Lone Survivor chronicled the harrowing events that followed. Not only did 3 of the 4 SEALs on that mission die during the firefight that followed, but the lives of 21 other SEALs and the helicopter crew that came in to rescue them were claimed as well.
Even when we got the first knock on our door that he was missing in action, I thought the next day when we left to head to Virginia Beach, I thought we were going to be there to welcome him home. I still did not realize or know the danger he was in.
The news swoops in like an unexpected guest. The phone rings or there's a knock at the door, and everything changes.
I had talked to Karina earlier in the day. She had said she'd talked to Brennan 2 days prior and he was doing well. And so in the evening when the phone rang and I saw it was her, I just had this thought. I couldn't hear her, so I had to call her back and then spoke those life-changing words.
On December 10, 2006, just 17 days shy of his 27th birthday, Sergeant Brennan Gibson was killed when an IED exploded under his Humvee in Baghdad.
My husband had to call all of our children and tell them that they needed to come home because Brennan had been killed. And even all the while, I still kept thinking, God, this is a mistake. They're wrong. It's somebody else. It's somebody else.
It's one of those days that I remember parts of it, and there's parts of it I don't remember.
On March 17, 2010, Adam Brown and his teammates were deep in the Hindu Kush of Afghanistan to capture or kill a high-value target responsible for the death of numerous American servicemen.
It had been a really good day. I had gotten so much accomplished. We'd gone to church that night. Life was good.
Without regard for his personal safety, Adam advanced to eliminate a threat that had his teammates pinned down. While advancing toward the threat, a hidden adversary opened up on Adam with an AK-47 assault rifle. Under a hail of gunfire, his teammates would have to carry Adam off the mountain to a secure location for a helicopter extraction.
My life's changed forever. At that very moment, you can't think. You don't know what to say. You miss that boy every day. I miss that little boy. I miss him a lot.
Life stops, almost marches in place. The unthinkable collides with the unbelievable. The unreal crashes head first into the unknown.
On July 4th, they came back. They had found TJ. And I remember falling to the ground. I was just devastated. My boy was gone.
I got a phone call that said they had located Mike and Danny's bodies, but they still hadn't found Matthew.
It wasn't until July 10th, 6 days later, that they got the official news of his death.
They'd been getting reports all day from the field, and they weren't good. And finally, they had located his body.
Brennan, when he was in the service, hadn't put in our change of address. I'd say it was probably a day and a half, maybe 2 days before they came to our house. So for 2 days, I just kept saying, no, it's wrong, it's wrong. They've made a mistake, it's not Brennan. And then that car came up, and there was no more saying it was a mistake. And then because he was in Iraq and because of his injuries that he sustained, it took him 17 days to get him home, to get to that closure, so you can move on from that point.
A mother's intuition is not uncommon in the loss of a child. That sudden feeling of spiritual disconnect, even when their child is thousands of miles away.
They told on TV that there had been a tragedy that had happened in Afghanistan. I didn't go to work that day. It must have been a sixth sense that something was wrong. When my husband came up for lunch, we were talking about this, and I asked him, how do they tell you your son or your daughter has been killed?
Donnie Davis was killed in Afghanistan on the 5th of December 2001 when a 2,000-pound JDAM bomb was accidentally dropped on his position by friendly fire.
15 minutes after I'd asked him that question, there was a man there at the door, and he's in a military uniform. It dawned on me that he's here to tell me our son is dead. They don't come to you and just say they're hurt. They're dead.
In the days that followed, they are added to a group of mothers they never wanted to be a part of, as the Blue Star of Service turns to gold because of their child's service and sacrifice.
I didn't even know about Blue Star Moms or Gold Star Moms until I became one. The club you don't want to join.
In 1917, Army Captain Robert Quizier hung a banner in the window of his home to honor his two sons. The banner had a red border surrounded by a white field with 2 blue stars on it, 1 star for each son serving in combat during World War I. Neighbors and others in the public adopted the practice for their sons and daughters as well. The blue stars of service were replaced with gold stars anytime a child or loved one was killed in action. When Lieutenant George Siebel was killed serving as an aviator on August 26, 1917, his mother Grace knew that self-contained grief was also self-destructive, so she rolled up her sleeves and extended a hand of friendship to other mothers whose sons were also lost to war. She organized a group of these special mothers with the purpose of not only comforting one another, but also making sure that the memories of their son's sacrifice were never forgotten. The organization was named American Gold Star Mothers Incorporated, after the gold star that families hung in their windows. The organization continues today because of the mutual love, sympathy, and support that these mothers provide for one another. Mothers who, while sharing their grief and the pride of their sons, have channeled their time, energy, and gifts toward lessening the pain of others.
At first, it was like, I really didn't want to hear from them because I didn't want to be in that club.
It helps to know there are others that have experienced the same pain.
They're a great group of women that I've met. It's nice to get together with them and share our children.
We were at one of those American Fallen Soldier presentations, and we met the family of who'd lost his son in Iraq.
They had a gold star on the back of their vehicle, so Donna and her husband asked them about it.
And they told us where to get one. And so we got one for my car and one for my husband's. And it's probably been on the back of the car 6 months maybe, and one person has said something.
Like other Gold Star mothers, these women are often angered by the apathy and utter lack of respect demonstrated by the media, the politicians, and the general public at large.
I feel like Brennan has really been honored for his sacrifice. And I see today the guys and girls that are getting killed over there, it's just not important anymore. And it really grieves me.
They're the ones that are out there sacrificing their lives, being away from their families to make sure that we can go do whatever we want. Well, somebody's family is being forever changed.
Nothing can replace what they have lost. A simple truth to fact, that no matter what they fill their lives with moving forward, pour themselves into to ease the pain, that each individual, one-of-a-kind, irreplaceable child is simply that.
I realized that DJ wouldn't want me to just be this miserable person living my life just in a painful grief. And I had to turn that grief around.
I think it helps us to help others instead of just focus on our loss. So that's helped us to heal.
I don't want to be stuck in a hole somewhere not doing anything. I want to go forward. I want to help others if I can.
It took me 7 years to really just be able to be joyful again.
I'm so proud that he did choose the military, Yeah, some days I do have my jello days. But other days I'm real strong about it.
It makes me so proud, you know. I get phone calls, I get emails of how DJ's story has changed their, you know, so many lives, kids that have turned their life around because of DJ's story, because of his sacrifice.
There are those among us that want to measure pain and define suffering, but grief is impossible to define. Someone once wrote, "A broken heart is a broken heart, and an attempt to take measure of it is pure cruelty." What's truly difficult to capture in the stories of these women is to see how similar their tragedies are, while understanding that each mother's pain is personal, private, and ultimately nothing alike. We hear the stories of their heroic sons only to realize how such men are made. Forged in the womb, tempered in the fires of life's trials and struggles, they are like the women who brought them into the world. These men were fearless, tireless, courageous, and strong. They were loyal, loving, unselfish, and faithful. They were everything like the women who shared them with us, everything like these mothers who now live on without them, mothers who now speak for the legacies that once were, and the legacies that always will remain. Like other Gold Star mothers, their loss is a debt we can never repay. Yet their courage and strength, grace, and resolute determination to honor the legacy of their children is an example we should never forget. To Gold Star mothers everywhere, thank you. May God bless you and comfort you. May this nation never forget your loss or the colors of the fall.